So I was in Santa Fe this year. One person come up to me and she goes, "Does everybody who walk into your booth smile and is just happy?" And I looked at my daughter and she looks at me and she goes, "Yes, you're in a bad day, walk into my booth because the color will make you happy." And you can have a bad day and you can look at something that has such color and such beauty and it can completely diminish everything that's going on in your life. Hi, I'm Shana Yellow Calf. I'm enrolled Northern Arapaho out of Wyoming. My heritage is obviously Plains. My mother's Métis First Nations out of Canada, and I grew up out here on the coast.
Almost your like favorite kind of medium to do.
Oh, I love acrylic because when
Mm.
you screw up with acrylic, you just paint over the top of it,
Yeah,
start all over again.
yeah, definitely. I mean, when you're working with acrylic and painting, what does kind of the environment look like as a whole? Like,
Sometimes I'll have a show going on my computer. Most of the time, I have my headphones on and I just tune the world out. I've got a variety of music. Try to stay away from really grungy type stuff because it makes me angry.
and I mean, you said how the music kind of affects your painting, and I've heard that your paintings include stories or even like memories, or it can be from a live event. I mean, how do you kind of get your feelings onto the canvas?
So most of the time, like you said, most of my time, my things tell stories, either traditional stories that I grew up with or that I hear, or interactions with people, or just stories that happen from just in my life with my kids. My feelings come out on my paintings by use of colors and by use of storytelling. Um, I try not to paint sad pictures when I'm sad, and I try not to paint when I'm angry.
Would you say that you generally try and be optimistic?
Yes. I think everything in the world should be optimistic. So I was in Santa Fe this year. Actually, one person come up to me and she goes, "Does everybody who walk into your booth smile and is just happy?" And I looked at my daughter and she looks at me and she goes, "Yes, actually, everybody who walks into our booth is genuinely happy. If you're in a bad day, walk into my booth because the color will make you happy.
Mhm.
The enjoyment of seeing the stories will make you happy." And you can have a bad day and you can look at something that has such color and such beauty and it can completely diminish everything that's going on in your life. That's what art's supposed to do. Art's supposed to take you somewhere else other than your own difficult time that you're having at that moment. It's sort of an escape, but it's a positive escape and should always be.
I mean, obviously, I have to talk about your children's book coming up. I mean, how have you,
Yes.
your dedication and your motivation through this process of creating, a seemingly arduous task of like a whole children's book?
So the nice thing about the book is it's called Frybread Trails, an adventure across Powwow country. It involves the tricksters, so it involves Sasquatch, it involves Coyote. It has a Toma in it, which is spider. It involves the little people, but it's kind of cool because within the book, the tricksters go across powwow country and they try different types of fry bread. Along the way, they meet other sort of people, which are actually characters in the book. So they meet Slim Shelley, who happens to be Turtle Mountain, and she's a turtle, and she's a jingle dance dresser. So they get to meet someone who does jingle dress dancing. And then they get to meet Mama J's fry bread truck, and she talks about bannock bread. And then they go to Santa Fe in a 1930s roadster, and they get to try Southwestern fry bread. And along the way, there's little snippets of fry bread recipes that I've gathered from friends along the way. So you'll get to not only read about how fry bread changes based off of region and family recipe and what was available at the turn of the century, but also you will get a chance to actually try to make it as well. So not only is it a children's book, but it also becomes a learning cookbook as well at the same time.
Yeah, what kind of inspired you to, to start this whole thing?
So I met this gentleman two
Mhm.
years ago at Muckle's Show, and we were talking about fry bread. We were talking about how back in the day in the plains it used to be called dirty lard bread or buggy bread because they gave us dirty lard to cook fry bread with, or they gave us flour that had bugs in it, which is why it was called buggy bread. And so we were talking about the history of it, and as we were going through it, he looked at me, he goes, you know, you know a lot about fry bread. You should write a book. And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. And he looks at me, he goes, you have grandkids. You should write a children's book. Oh, that's an even better idea. And then he saw I had one of the fry bread pieces done. He goes, that would be really cool as a book right there. And so we got to talking a little bit more. And he goes, I really think you would do really well as a children's book writer. And I was like, okay. So it kind of started as a conversation with another elder vendor at a powwow. And it just kind of blossomed from there.
Could you kind of take us back to when you got the grant for the Redmond Center and just the feelings of?
Learning how to go from being an artist to going, okay, I actually have to hang this huge installation was what do I need? I needed scissor lifts and I needed things that I had never touched before and I had no idea how to use. So the great thing about Redmond was it made me step back and go, I can do these projects. I have the ability to do these projects. I have the ability to share my art with the world with these projects. Um, and I have to look at them as a learning tool and a time for me to expand on my art. Will I do it again? Not sure yet.
If you had to choose like one of your pieces, no matter what medium, that kind of maybe is your favorite or maybe just encapsulates your ideas the best, which one would it be?
It would have to be the very first piece that I did to start this whole journey, which was Pray for Us, Mother Earth. That piece, the original, was done for my mother for her birthday. It was done, what was this, 6 years ago when I started this. It pretty much represents everything that I am because there's a lot of symbolism in it. It's my mother in the Pendleton blanket that was given to her and my dad when I was born. It's her clan, it's Mother Earth, it's mother her praying for all of us. This encompasses a lot of things.
Yeah, but would you say that there's a overarching theme? You kind of touched on it earlier with like optimism and keeping your head up. Is there any other themes that you would want to mention in your art, or if someone looks at your art pieces or a gallery?
I mean, I've been through a lot in my life, in some very difficult things in my life. And I've always been able to find that one little piece of string that allows me to realize there's still good somewhere. And that allows me to get through that one difficult point. So if someone looks at my art and goes, wow, I can take that picture and put it in my head. And if I have a difficult time in my life, I can remember that one picture and get through that difficult time, then I've done my job.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for young artists who, are trying to make it through their creative processes or maybe going through rough times like you did? Do you have any key points of advice for them?
Find a way to make a connection. Drawing in art is therapeutic. It allows us to work through whatever emotions that we're working through and allow us to have our own therapy on paper.
Would you say like that's one of the parts of how you know a painting is done when you feel all the emotions on the painting, or how do you kind of end a painting?
I end up painting when the canvas tells me it's done. Just like I start a painting when the canvas tells me it's ready to be started. So I can pick up a canvas and I can start sketching something and it might not feel right. I'll put it away. It means it's not ready to be started. Or I might start a painting and halfway through it, I'm like, I am so stuck. There was one it took me a year to do because it just wasn't going anywhere. It didn't want to be finished. It wasn't ready for it to be finished. My mom kept telling me, pray over it, smudge it, pray over it. It'll be when it's ready to be finished, it's ready to be finished.
Artists who happen to be indigenous, but you can be stifled by it through the industry because we're so new to this representation that's coming to us. And in terms of being Native and facing the challenges, it's more like being underestimated because you're a Native artist. I rise to